in the book, he's trying to create like an amazing, the perfect human. So well, let's make him look like a Greek statue instead of look like a monster. Let's make him look fabulous.
I think they did do an amazing job on the design work. Don't you guys agree? I mean, from my perspective, it was pretty impressive what you managed to pull off there in terms of redesigning something that we're so used to seeing. And again, for me it was interesting because obviously when I got approached to do this, I mean, I'm a live action director. I do live action movies, and so sort of the idea of doing a motion comic was a bit of a weird one for me. I didn't know whether I wanted to do it or not until I read the book, and I was like, well, it's kind of really cool, let's do it. So, I'm really glad I got involved with it. And my big question is, the way the characters sound on the screen for you guys, is that how you envisioned it in your head? Did you have entirely different versions of what
I always imagined the sort of Cardinal Vargas, who gets...
By the way, Cardinal Vargas is actually Steve Beatty, everyone, so that was his vocal talent.
To be honest, I have to be in the studio and they said, would you do it? Because no one else would.
we heard the voice actors and we were like, this is fucking nuts, can we just tone it down slightly?
I think it's interesting, like, saying that, because for every vocal that we recorded, you are, again, because my background is live action, there's a subtlety to live action. It's about how people look. It's what they don't say.
Well, this is the thing with comic dialogue, is that you kind of you have to read it in your head, so therefore you make it more
pronounced.
Exactly. So it's very like if you directly translate it into dialogue, it sounds fucking nuts.
But I think that was the hard part for us. I mean, it was a bit of a journey in terms of putting the dialogue together, because originally we went for the more subtler deliveries and the more understated tones, and because of
But then you're combining with facial acting, which is this.
Yeah, the limitations of a motion comic are that, it's not a Disney movie, it's not a Pixar film, and actually the way you guys had written in the first place is more appropriate, so it's sort of then going back to these more angry takes, if you will, and we got the actors to do like 3 versions of everything, like a quiet, hushed version, and then they're just over the top. You probably need some prescription pills for ADHD kind of performance, and that was what we tended to go with because it just made the most sense. But I mean, in terms of the music and stuff as well, did you guys feel that that's sat where you would want it to? And I mean, it's just a very interesting process because I've never met you guys before, and it's kind of interesting to see what you imagined and then passing it over to me. And my background isn't in this kind of music. I mean, I was a wannabe, punk when I was a kid, and I'm actually 31 by the way. I was about 12, already twice ago. So for me it was interesting to sort of go and do the heavier kind of stuff and try and interpret that and work with people that knew a lot about it and try and be respectful of that. So I had a fun time with David Vincent though, he's a character. So Steve came down for that. How did we've got some big names involved. We've got, Danny Filth and Jill Janis and David Vincent. I mean, really, they were your contacts, Steve. Like, I mean, how did that come about?
I was in a restaurant in Cannes, oddly enough. I was talking to Michael from Seasons of Mist. I was talking to a friend of mine who runs a record label called Seasons of Mist, and I was talking about a project, because Seasons of Mist put out their Sons of Valor album. And we were talking about, and I said over there, we were talking about names, who could do this and who could do that. He said, David would be fantastic for Van Helsing. And I was like, fuck, duh, of course he would. And if David's got a voice, if he said, open the door, you go, that's really cool. And he's just got one of these amazing voices, which you don't, if David could say, like, do you want to go to the bar? And you go, yes, I do want to go to the bar. Of course I do, because I'll follow you, because you've got a great voice. And he's just got such a fantastic voice. And to me, his voice carries that movie. It's like he's a brilliant Van Helsing.
My original choice for Van Helsing was Patrick Troughton. He's been dead for quite a long time now.
Christopher Waltz.
But David has just got a brilliant voice. He really, really has. And he's, of course, I knew David from years ago, and when he was in Morbid Angel and stuff, and he turned up to Tom Lind, producer, he turned up and said, Peter, and went and saw him. And honestly, since David left Morbid Angel, I really hadn't kind of taken much notice of what he was doing because he wasn't Morbid Angel. So, and he turns up and he was dressed in a big cowboy hat and cowboy boots, and he's in this country and western band now. He had this whole new life in Texas. So he's left kind of Florida death metal to go live in Texas and be a cowboy.
He's become the ultimate Texas stereotype.
Yeah,
the first thing he offered me was chewing tobacco.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
It wasn't. I mean, I was expecting to have a sick. It was just like, what happened to you since the last time I saw you? When you've gone from David Vincent death metal hero to you were a cowboy. When did that happen? And he told me about his life and all sorts of stuff. And to be honest, when David, Michael from Season said, give him a call, so I gave him a call, talking to Scott for an hour. And to his credit, he got the book, loved it, and flew over and sat in the studio for 3 days and got on with it.
And it was
I have to say, he was the most charming man ever. He really is, and was so into the project and so supportive. And he was a joy. He really
It was like a real culture clash as well. You got this guy, you got the lead singer of Morbid Angel, who now does country music, and then we took him to Pendulum, the drum and bass act's recording studio, and it was like hanging out with David Vincent from Morbid Angel and Pendulum for the day. It was really weird, so really strange. But I thought he was one of the nicest, most kind of not what you expected. I think he's just a really nice guy, and Danny Filth was a big surprise for me as well. I guess I was expecting this huge guy, and obviously he's not. But he's just got this voice that's ridiculous, and I mean, he was a lot of fun.
I think his voice was the best, really.
But he actually played two characters. He was obviously Bala, and he was Lebet as well. So we were messing around with sound effects in the studio and recording it like that in mic. So it was a very interesting character to spend the day with. And
well, obviously you got to meet everybody and see them, because all the voices are obviously done in different times and different places, and then you have to go and put it all together.
Yeah.
I think Jill was a good Athena. And who was in Nematari? I never got to meet them.
Nematari is actually Alyssa Sweary. We went through a few versions of that character actually. It was the one I was the most interested in. And the idea came from Max, the sound guy, because we had this sort of, almost Cockney banter on the door in Egypt. And the idea was to run with this idea that perhaps she'd spent time in the London Museum and had picked up a bit of the ends kind of dialogue, which was kind of a strange way to go with it, but I think it really worked in the end. And but originally we went for the Middle Eastern twang, and it bizarrely, because of the the over-the-top tone you need to go for, we worried that it might come across as too stereotypical. And yeah, I think it was an interesting direction we took it in the end, but I think it works. So. Yeah. Okay, so one more question for you. Obviously, Sons of Bala are in the audience tonight. We're doing a launch party. A crowbar. Hopefully, we'll see you all there. Tell us a little bit.